You're listening to an East Coast Guild podcast. Check us out at eastcoastguild.com.
All right, so we're testing this out. We're going to see how well the sound works. We both have an AirPod in, and AirPods have built-in mics, which is why I'm using it. So we're going to see if it's working out or not.
And I'm totally not texting someone. So.
Oh, he totally is. But, like, there's no good way to get him and I... Wait, there might be.
Yeah.
I thought about it. If we take that and we push it up, we could probably get both of us in there without having a problem. But you would have to do the work because I'm driving the car.
You can see my shoulder. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, you know, that's how it works.
I mean, in any case, I can just dramatically move in and like, here's my reaction. I look like I'm dead.
Yeah.
So let's not do that.
We want to start working on like KH content. Me very specifically because I love Kingdom Hearts. Like I'm a huge Kingdom Hearts fan.
Mm-hmm.
It's both of our favorite series.
What?
One of our favorite series. Yeah, I know you have multiple favorite series.
By the way, I have a water bottle.
Oh yeah, I'd love some water actually because I wasn't gonna get anything until we stopped for gas.
I mean, I grabbed the last 2 water bottles that I had in my car. So
Nice.
I'm like, hey, sweet.
Yeah, I'll take some water. That coffee was terrible today.
Anyway,
So we're gonna be doing some Kingdom Hearts content, and Willie P, shout out to Willie P. What he basically said that we should do, or what I should do, to start off with Kingdom Hearts content, was to talk about my history with the game,
slightly.
why I like it, why I, this, that, and the other thing. Come on.
Okay, turn it over the other way.
No, the freaking thing kept moving up, so it was like,
That works.
yeah.
Chug, 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 chug.
Oh, that's like all I needed. The coffee really like dried out my mouth. So that might need to be a little bit tighter, by the way. That's fine. So we were just like, what's our history with the game? Why do we like it? Do we have any fun moments? Those are going to be the things that we're going to talk about really quickly, because I can still like drive. Like my watch is still giving me directions while we're going, and we've got like 30 miles that we're going to be on this road until we get to exit 257. So, and knowing this road, we're probably going to get slowed down to about 25 miles an hour because there's probably inevitably always a wreck on 81.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so I first saw the game. First time I ever saw Kingdom Hearts was in 2007. It's the first time I ever saw the game. Never heard anything about the game. And I fell in love with it instantly.
That's a bit like the same for me.
It was after KH2 had come out, and I was hanging out with Willie P at his house, like staying the night or whatever. And I basically watched him, and he's like, "Hey, you wanna see something cool?" And I was like, "Sure, what's up?" And he goes, "So you like Final Fantasy, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I love Final Fantasy. It's cool. It's a cool series. Like, I think it's really neat." I was like, "I haven't really played any of them, but maybe like I think I had played. No, I hadn't even played three yet at that point.
Had you played Advent Children yet? Or 7 at least.
Advent Children hadn't come out yet. I might have been playing through Crisis Core on the PlayStation. But I knew of the series, and I thought it was a really cool series. I just hadn't played a lot of it because, as a Nintendo child, you really only have 1 through 4 that you can play.
Yeah.
And I didn't own any of them at the time because they were all for a comp. Like I didn't have them on the NES.
Yeah.
Or the SNES. Like I just didn't.
SNES had 5 and 6.
Oh, okay. Well, either way, like I didn't have a SNES and I didn't have the cartridge for the NES.
Yeah.
And they weren't selling them anymore.
Yeah.
So I didn't really get to play them. No, I lied. My first encounter with Kingdom Hearts was Calm.
Ooh.
I was wrong. My first encounter was Calm, and that was back in middle school. That was like 7th grade.
Ouch.
Game Boy Advance.
Ouch.
Yeah, I had a couple of friends who liked the series.
I mean, like
No, wait, that was still. I'm getting my timeline messed up. The person's house I remembered actually was in high school, yeah. So I did play COM in high school. Yeah.
See, in my case, it was KH1.
Yeah.
I'd say it was about 2006, 2007. It's funny to think about this now. One of my brother's ex, they were playing the game, and I was like, oh, let me see what this game is. I played the game, used a little of their save data, and I was like, oh, interesting game, whatnot. Next thing you know, every day I got off of school, I immediately played the game. So I beat it. And it was her copy, but she's like, he can keep it, he's enjoying the game, and then I fell in love with the game at that point.
Yeah. So, I'm going to turn kind of back towards.
You can say it, like I said.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I was right. Pat was the first one that ever introduced me to it. The person's house I was thinking of, I do remember getting COM from them. Oh my gosh, that was. But I had started playing it, and the first thing I had ever seen him do was level 99 standard Sephiroth fight. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, dude, that's awesome. Sephiroth's in this game. Like, that's so cool. And so my first encounter was KH2. And he's like, yeah, it's really awesome. He's like, but watch this. And so he goes to do the Cerberus fight. Level 99. Max drives. And he's like, don't blink. And I was like, what? And he goes, just watch. And he went and he did the fight. And I was like, I missed it. What happened? And he goes, did you blink? I was like, I think I did. He goes, okay, try harder this time. And he did it again. Jumped into final form. Ended the fight like that. Which is why I do that. Like when I get aggravated, if you've seen on stream, when I get aggravated, I go and I do the very end. I do that because that's one of my first memories with the game. Is watching that fight happen, watching the final fight happen with Cerberus in final form, and it taking all of like 30 seconds. Like it's such a short fight in final form because like if he doesn't jump, you're done in 2 combos.
Yeah.
So usually it takes me about 30 seconds because he jumps around for me a lot, which it's just an RNG.
It's just killing him that quickly. You're being that strong.
Oh,
it's just so good.
It's so fun. Like I got so ticked off playing Recom one time. I literally jumped to Kingdom Hearts 2 and just did that fight like 4 times in a row, and I was like, good, I feel powerful again. Because it hits that power fantasy while still being challenging, which is we found is the thing that I need in video games. I need a power fantasy, but also challenge. And Kingdom Hearts is probably one of the greatest games. Kingdom Hearts and Path of Exile are probably the 2 greatest games I've ever had for that. But anyway, so that was my first encounter. So I went back, played through Kingdom Hearts 1.
What about the last encounters?
The last encounters. So there's a misconception. And the last time
I didn't know where you were going to go with that one.
You know exactly where I'm going now, though. I think, maybe not. The last time I played Kingdom Hearts, people thought I quit because I was giving up.
Oh, that one. I thought.
No, I was not. I was sitting there like, man.
Okay.
There's not a lot going on tonight with Kingdom Hearts. I'm gonna go try another game because somebody else wants to play another game. I was like, okay, sure, whatever. No, I know. You were on mobile. It's okay. I understand. From the context clues he had, he thought I was getting ticked off at the data fights. I was not. I was like, because the guy was like, just calm down. It was like, it was more of me just getting all my like anxiety out because those fights are on standard. They're very anxious filled.
They're very easy on standard.
And I was still like filled with anxiety, but I'm also not doing enough damage. I found out like I'm not doing enough damage, so we're gonna have to figure that out. I probably need to make some power boosts and stuff like that. Like your stats are maxed out for the most part.
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah, I mean you have a few levels until you're at 99, but
I gotta look up and see if there's an enemy that can drop power capsules.
Yeah,
since there is.
Do a grind for it. Other than maybe rare capsules, like the prize generators might be able to. Comment below if you know.
Willie P, get on that.
Right? But that was my first encounter with Kingdom Hearts. I played through the entire series. I remember when Final Mix 2. No, it wasn't Final Mix 2. I remember when Willie P beat it on Proud Mode, and we watched the cut scene, which was the beginning of Birth by Sleep.
Okay.
I remember that, and I remember watching it, and then going back and like rewatching it. This is like the first time I ever did like a trailer analysis, and I remember rewatching it on my old first desktop, which ran Ubuntu as an operating software back in the early 2000s.
Ooh, Ubuntu, no.
Yeah, it was so bad. Like my parents had like a Windows computer, and they gave me one, which was given to them, and it was a Ubuntu.
Oh.
Yeah, it was so bad. I loved it. It was terrible.
You just remind me of LimeWire. That's not something I
Oh,
remember.
LimeWire. So many better ways to like get music for free now.
Yeah. uTorrent.
I mean, YouTube to MP3,
Pandora.
Spotify,
No, Spoofy.
Spotify.
I would have.
Oh, but it was a lot of fun, and I remember rewatching it, and and Willie P can attest to this, and he has before.
He won't this time.
He probably will. We watched that, and I remember talking to him. We were theory crafting. I said, "This is what's going to happen in Birth by Sleep." Ran through, and I mean, it was a general picture of what's going to happen in the story, but I was 100% correct. I remember watching it being like, because it's the trailer, it's the final fight trailer, and you're like, this dude's basically Riku, who's going to be like, he's going to pass it down to Riku, but he's got the power of darkness, and he's going to be lost forever. I was like, Ventus, his heart's going to be taken, and that's how we're going to have Roxas. And then,
But of course, at this point,
yeah,
the only games that were out were 1, 2,
and Calm,
which you didn't see anything having to do with the Nobodies or Roxas.
yeah. So the only bit you knew from Roxas was Tutorial Town.
Yeah.
And so, for those that don't know Kingdom Hearts
I
slang,
completely forgot about Tutorial Town. I'm so
Tutorial Town is that's not Traverse Town. This one, it's Twilight
happy.
Town.
Twilight Town in 2.
It's Twilight Town in 2. It's the first like hour and a half of the game.
I will say Twilight Town's better than Tutorial Town because
Twilight Town and Traverse Town are both Tutorial Towns. It just depends on what game you're talking about.
Traverse is better.
Oh, Traverse is so much better. Traverse is so much better.
Traverse is better.
Twilight's just so slow in 2. It takes so much time to get through it. Traverse, if you know what you're doing, you're done.
Yeah, you're pretty much done as soon as you're
Thank you so much for letting me know. If you guys couldn't hear, that was my directions. So, it's just good to know I can like record content on my phone and still know where I'm going. So that's nice.
content.
Yeah, we loosely call it content.
Just gave it full quotes, I realized.
It's okay. But that was like one of my best memories with Kingdom Hearts, was just being able to basically predict all of Birth by Sleep.
I was just thinking, I didn't really have any. Outside of playing Cage 1 and Cage 2, Cage 1 was in elementary for me. And I played Cage 2 up through middle school.
Because Cage 1 came out in 2005 in America.
Yeah.
I didn't play it for the first time until I was in high school. And I don't even know that I played it. Like, I can't remember. I can't remember if I played it or if Willie P and I, when we hung out, like 2 or 3 times, we went through the entire storyline. I think no, I had a file on his PS2 to play through for the first time.
Okay.
And then I hadn't played it again fully through until I played it for stream on Proud Mode.
Wait, really? Whoa.
That's how much I'm not a huge fan of Cage 1.
I'll be honest.
Like the fight system in Cage 1. If you think Cage 2 is bad, Cage 1 is like 10 times worse.
Okay, there's 2 things in Cage 1 that's favorite. One is the camera, and two is Hollow Bastion.
Yeah.
It's the,
Hollow Bastion's just...
like
You can fall off a ledge and then have to restart basically the entire thing.
that part I was okay with. It's going in the bubble form and going in the maze. That's the one thing I hate the most of it. And that's the one thing I have the worst memories of.
The bubble form and like the changing of the doors and the walls and everything like that.
Even the Atlantis was better than that. Atlantis was nice.
Atlantis was... Everybody craps on Atlantis in KH1, but Atlantis in KH1 is so much better than Atlantis in KH2.
Atlantis in KH2 is a minigame. But
But it's a necessary minigame, and that's what I don't like. I don't like that I have to go through the whole thing to get the Iridium Plus.
or in KH1 it was, here's Ariel, she's the Princess of Light,
Yeah,
which I do enjoy.
I can appreciate that as well, yeah.
The movement in it was very interesting because your right stick was up and down. No,
You had to, like,
But you-
click in to move up and down.
yeah,
It was weird.
because Sora is a dolphin.
Yeah.
You can move up and you can move down.
Either it was triggers.
It might have been triggers.
They weren't used for much. You usually use the bumpers in that game. You don't usually use the triggers much in Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, but it was a really interesting movement mechanic because in KH1 the only time when you really sort of changed what you looked like normally was Atlantis and Halloween Town.
Yeah.
Because Halloween Town you got darker colors because it's Halloween Town.
You got a different costume,
Different.
and you had like the hat and everything and the mask.
What else was there in KH1?
Was it?
Atlantis and Halloween Town.
I think so.
Okay. Because in KH2 you also have Atlantis, but again that's just
You
minigame.
had Atlantis, Pride Lands,
Pride Lands you changed
Tron.
entirely. Tron, Timeless River,
and Halloween Town.
There was another one.
And then there was Christmas Town. Had another one.
Yeah,
It's the same world as Halloween Town.
Fair.
That was it.
That's one of the things that I do enjoy.
Mulan,
Beast Castle.
Olympus, Beast Castle. You did it because those were the only ones on that side of the map. I see it.
Also, one thing a lot of people don't talk about in KH1, because it's a world with RNG in the beginning of it, is Monstro.
Oh, Monstro.
Monstro sucked.
I love and hate it.
Yeah, it's a love-hate relationship because the first time going through, you don't know what's going on. It's really confusing.
Oh, I agree.
But at the same time, it's interesting to get Pinocchio and Jiminy Cricket because that's the only time you really
Yeah,
get
because that's the
story
only
with
time you get Jiminy's story and stuff like that. Well, other than
Rico.
Recom and no, do they? No,
Yeah, and Recom.
I don't think they came back in Dream Drop.
No,
I think it is only Recom.
it's Recom. Well, Jiminy goes into depth about it a little bit.
He does, and then you also get it again in Days. I think you go to Monstro in Days. I can't remember.
You might. I don't
I know
remember.
you definitely go to a lot of the worlds in one in Days,
Mhm.
but
Days
I
is-
don't think I wanted to hit on before we move on too far is they're bringing back three-dimensional travel in 3. If you didn't watch the trailer, but if you didn't watch the trailer, Pirates of the Caribbean, there are going to be fights in the water, which could make Pirates the best world or the worst world so far.
It depends on how the Kraken does.
Yes.
Because
There's a Kraken fight, and then there's another Heartless fight that's underwater.
It's not said that it's a Kraken, but it's a Kraken.
Yeah, it's probably the Kraken. You fight Davy Jones, which
Yeah.
would be cool.
Ooh, yeah. That's gonna be fun.
Then also, there's probably going to be three-dimensional movement in Big Hero 6 world,
Ooh, yeah.
fighting Anti-Baymax.
Well, it could also be that's just a scripted flight.
Well, yes. I'm assuming it's probably going to be a scripted flight, but I'm guessing that still stuff's going to be there. I also think it's going to be interesting. They're doing a mix of what looks like drive forms with command decks.
Yeah, I noticed command decks.
Because,
That's gonna be.
well, like, there's command decks, but it's not in the sense of command decks. Like, it's not in the sense of Birth by Sleep or Days, or not Days, Birth by Sleep or DreamCon.
DreamCon.
It's different than that a little bit.
Yeah.
Not that it's a bad thing. Like, I liked a lot of the command decks. Like, that's one of the reasons why Birth by Sleep is one of my favorite. It's like my second favorite game.
I like the design of the command drops.
So much
Command
fun.
decks, but some parts are like the refreshing of it I don't enjoy because it reminds me too much of Chain.
Yes, but it's better than Chain, which is why I liked it. Like, the reloading is not great.
I'll say this: when I say Chain, I mean the Game Boy Advance, not Recon.
Yeah, well, yeah, Recom's was better. They shortened the time it took to reload.
Yeah,
But the thing with Birth by Sleep is that it had cooldown timers, which is also why I ran 2 Kiragas in every single deck.
Side note: speaking of Recon's one of those games that they remade it, but it's a rare instance where the remake wasn't better. They made it was actually worse. A lot of people in the community do not like Recon just because.
Well, I've only met one person that opposes this opinion, but COM in general, COM and Recon, by 90% of the Kingdom Hearts community would say it's the worst game that ever came out from the series.
I will say it's a different direction they were heading towards. It's like, hey, this is a type of game that no one normally does. For those of you who don't know, Chain of Memories, which was on the Game Boy Advance, is all combat is card-based.
And it did come out when a lot of card-based games were coming onto Game Boy Advance. Like, a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Games were coming out, and stuff like that. Like, so they were trying to go with the craze.
It was the first time Square Enix had done something that was card-based like that on Game Boy Advance. So they were going with it, seeing how it would go. Because of the way it was done and with its community for Kingdom Hearts, it didn't go so well, so they hadn't done it yet.
Yeah, they never did again. And the next time they attempted something like it was with the decks in the command decks in Birth by Sleep, which worked out really well.
Yeah.
It worked out exponentially better. But so if we were to rate them from worst to best game, well, we have different ratings on it. And I have a different rating on it based on story versus gameplay as well.
Okay.
Because story worst game is probably Coded. But gameplay wise, worst game is Chain of Memories. And I am counting the Rees in with them as well, like if they were redone.
Okay.
I'm not gonna separate COM and Recon. Like it's silly to me.
Yeah.
I understand some people doing it, but like for me, like they both still like.
I can understand it for if it's gameplay versus instead of story, because it's the same story.
Yeah.
It's just done with 3D.
Yeah.
Models
and movement. Which the 3D movement I liked more in Recon, but at the same time it led for a lot more problems.
Yeah.
But anyway, I would say worst gameplay, Chain of Memories flat. Both of them, I put them both pretty much on the same level because of the card-based system. Not the movement, not the camera, the card-based system. It's all RNG based, and in Kingdom Hearts the fights are not an RNG based. It's Dark Souls with Disney, basically, when it comes to some of their fights.
Technically, it's if you know what you're doing, it's not RNG based, but it explains it very poorly.
Well, it's RNG based on what your opponent will do.
Yes.
That's what I don't like.
It's RNG based on what your opponent drops for card for what your next turn is going to be.
Yes.
You can manipulate that based off of what you use.
Yeah.
But
there's
at
ways
the same
to,
time,
and you can manipulate a lot of RNG.
At the same time, it's in the air for what's what.
Yeah, and to get to the point where you know, oh, if I play this card, then they'll play this card. Like that's more than I'm sorry. You shouldn't be giving a 13, 14-year-old that game and expecting them to get to that level of an analyzation. You know?
I will say Recon was probably a lot more technical in depth than.
Yeah. Well, it had the ability to be.
Yeah.
It came out for the PS2 originally. Then next I would say would be Coded. I still liked Coded. I'm one of the few that liked Coded.
Toad was okay.
I thought it was unique. Great. It was a good story.
I love the story, but
it was unique gameplay with the boss fights and stuff. I thought that was unique. How they decided to go about that, and I appreciated it.
Technically speaking, I never played Coded.
That's okay. I played Recoded. Because
Recoded
Coded, well, it's a movie on everything now.
Yeah.
It came out on the DS.
Yeah, I never played the actual game.
Yeah.
I only saw someone play it, and they're like, "This isn't that great," so I never did.
It's not great. It's not bad. It's an experience.
It's one of those that
Because,
I definitely looked up later.
They if you look at like the first boss, it's like a mix of a gummy mission and a boss fight, which was really cool. But at the same time, it's not traditionally what Kingdom Hearts does. Because as I said before, Kingdom Hearts is basically like their boss fights are Dark Souls meets Disney.
Yeah.
It's not as hard as Dark Souls. Some of the fights aren't. I'll say most of the main story fights aren't.
The Disney fights are not.
Yeah, but
The Final Fantasy ones are.
There's some of the Final Fantasy ones are harder, and then some of the Heartless battles are really bad. The original characters, like the data fights, are on par with Dark Souls, in my opinion. Playing both of them, from what I've played of Dark Souls, I would put like the data fights, Lingering Will, Endgame fights. Endgame fights are definitely, in my opinion, on that same vein.
Yeah.
That is my opinion, at least, on it. So then after Coded, I would say, gameplay-wise, the next worst one would have been
Dream Drop?
It's tough. It's between Dream Drop and Days. I'd probably go Dream Drop.
Okay.
As being bad, because Dream Drop,
I love Days.
the problem with Dream Drop was you couldn't do one storyline on its own.
Yeah, the jumping
They
back and
forced
forth.
you to jump back and forth. Now, generally they had it set up so you would have 2 drops for each world. So you'll drop once about halfway through the story, and you do half of the story for that world for the next person. Then you drop again, finish off the story, drop again, finish off the story, move on to the next world.
But here's another thing. When you died, you immediately dropped over.
Yes.
That was
Sometimes. I didn't always drop over.
always dropped.
That's not how it worked for me.
And see, I only played the remaster. I didn't play the original.
They might have changed that in the remastered then.
Because in the original, it would be like, you die. All right, time to switch over to Riku. All right.
Well, see,
because you died, now when you get back to Sora has less length of time than he normally would.
That was a thing that they had in there.
That
it would
part
take
is
out of
what
your
I hated.
time, but you didn't drop right away. That was what I noticed. You wouldn't drop right away, but it lowered your time.
Yeah, I will say with Dream Drop, I enjoyed since when you played as Sora and you played as Riku, you didn't have companions. Your companions were what are they called? The Unverse? No,
They were the Dream
Eaters.
Monsters,
The Dream
Eaters.
I enjoyed the fact that you could have them as your companions.
That was fun. That was
You
a cool
can kind of level them up a little bit and do little stuff here and there. That I really enjoyed. But at the same time, the fact that Sora had different ones and Riku had different ones also I enjoyed.
They unlocked different ones, but like one of them unlocked the Triceratops, and one of them unlocked like the T-Rex.
Yeah.
But once you unlocked the T-Rex, you could then have the other person make it. But it was discovering the recipe. What they had separate recipes.
That was something I really enjoyed.
But like I would
It
say
was also
that
the drop in between, like the physical drop that you had to go through the little mini game, the essential the gummy.
Yeah, the initial to. It wasn't always the drop; it was going to the new world.
Yeah,
They had gummy missions on that. I don't really think gummy missions in a DS game was. Well, it was 3DS, but still, gummy missions it wasn't a good idea.
What?
It was a 3DS game.
You have 3DSs?
Yes, actually, I have. Yeah, but that's a different story.
Oh no.
I've had a lot of. I lost my first DS when I was in 8th grade on a Mackinac Island trip when I was still living in Michigan.
I still have my original DS.
I don't. Somebody stole it.
I know it's my original DS because it doesn't have the stylus anymore because I kept stealing it from other people.
Nice. after Coded, I would say, it's so tough. I would probably actually say Kingdom Hearts 1.
I was gonna say
With the gameplay.
Yeah. Like, it's good gameplay. Don't get me
But
wrong.
the camera's trash.
The camera's not the
the
best.
camera.
At the time, it was the normal.
It was good. It was
Yeah.
good for what it was at the time. But
The
that
doesn't
camera was bad.
Yeah.
Like, you guys don't know, that was bad.
If you played it, you understand.
Yeah. Then I would go with Days.
Okay.
On what? I've only got like 2 games left. Then it would be Birth by Sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And then my favorite is KH2. KH2 is my favorite of all time. Although story-wise, I don't know that KH2 is my favorite. Story-wise, Birth by Sleep might be my favorite. Because I liked the 3 intertwining stories going on all at once.
I will say,
But they did it in a lot better way than the 3DS did.
Yeah. I will say our lists are about the same. Of course, I would say, yeah, Chain is at the bottom, no matter what.
It's so bad.
Because I didn't play Coded, I would probably put Coded next.
You know, and understand, like, if you guys don't know the history behind Coded, I'm just going to throw this in there. It started off as a phone game in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I forgot to add in Unchained Key, which had 3 different names.
Yeah.
Its gameplay is pretty good though. I'd put it probably after Coded on my list, so it'd be third worst. It'd go between Coded and 3D.
Yeah.
Which 3D's name, by the way, is just such a glorious name because it was on the 3DS.
Yeah.
And then it was in 3D.
Yeah.
And then it was also Dream Drop Distance, and so the name was 3Ds. So I love that. I love that so much about that game.
Honestly, I don't know what I would say would be next best. So my list is Chain, Coded. Mine would probably be 3D after that. I really did not like 3D.
No, and I understand. We've talked at length about 3D.
Yeah. Next is probably KH1.
Yeah.
Then Birth by. Even though I didn't really super enjoy the command deck, it's still better than that stupid camera. Then Days, because I adored Days.
Days was good. Days' story was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Its gameplay wasn't bad.
The beginning, the starting off on Days was really hard.
Oh, it's so slow.
Because it's so slow. Because it's, all right, go do this one thing. All right, you figured out how to jump. That's the end of this day. All right,
yeah.
Go do
this.
this.
That was, and then it's like, now we're going to give you a bunch of exposition on the story.
Yeah.
It's like,
that was always the hardest to start a new save file. But once you got like maybe an hour in, that's when the game started to.
And it was the first game that they brought in co-op options.
It was so good.
That was a lot of fun.
It was also a more in-depth history of what happened with Organization 13.
Yes, because it was Roxas's story. It was the organization's story.
Also, she.
Oh gosh.
Which is
Can we talk about the fact that she's coming back? Like, I mean,
yeah, I'm
that's gonna be.
That's weird.
I am like 95. Like when he sat there and he saw her in Kairi, when Axel saw her in Kairi, Lee, and then in addition to that, he was sitting there and was like, "Who are you?" And everybody's like, "Oh, it's Roxas. It's Roxas." No, he remembers Roxas.
Yeah.
Because Roxas. Like, even though Roxas wasn't supposed to exist, he remembers Roxas.
Axel, which then returned back to Lee, remembers Roxas, even though he wasn't supposed to exist, because Axel and Roxas were best friends.
And Sora remembers Roxas.
Yes.
And so that's the thing. But Xion was like...
You know what's going to happen?
It's probably part of her stuff with her memory, like with the fact of her, she was also made from like Naminé and everything. That's probably why it was completely like erased from everybody.
Alright, that's one thing I always forget with Xion. Xion is a nobody of Naminé.
She's a nobody of a nobody.
Yeah, but Naminé is a nobody of Kairi.
Yes. Which came about when Kairi had her heart taken out from
KH1. Because she was the 13th Princess of Light.
Because by the way, For those of you that are not Kingdom Hearts people that are still watching this, if you've made it this far, which we're 35 minutes in. Yeah, right?
Wait, I said this to myself, yeah.
What was I going on about?
Princess of Light.
Princess of Light. There's 13 Princesses of Light. Is it 13 or is it 7? 7 Hearts of Light, 13 Hearts of Darkness.
Yes.
No. 7 Hearts of Light. There's 7 Princesses of Light. Sorry.
Which 6 are Disney.
6 are Disney, 1 is Kairi.
Yeah.
Which is what makes her so special in Birth by Sleep. Then, because she's the only Princess of Light that knows how to wield a Keyblade. Then there is 13 Hearts of Darkness, which is Xehanort putting his heart into everybody, which is the original point of the organization, was to find vessels suitable to have Xehanort put his heart, pieces of his heart into. Basically, he's like, if you're a Harry Potter fan, it's basically like a Horcrux.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really true.
It's very similar to the fact of a Horcrux. But something that I'm very excited for in 3 was when we saw the Kithri in the trailer, was when the Kithri said, wait, you don't know how to bring hearts back that have been lost? I lost it. I was like, boy, you bet.
But you know what's going to happen in 3?
Well,
other than all of the bad things we know is going to happen?
Riku's going to die.
I mean, maybe.
I'm going to cry more for Riku dying than, like, if Sora would die. Like, that would be...
No, Shion's going to come back, and she's going to look. It's like, Roxas, I remember you.
And he's going to be like...
No, it's going to be like, I remember you or I don't remember you. Either way, she's going to be like, I remember you, and I remember what you didn't do. And then she's going to change like that.
What did he not do?
Well, if I remember...
Was it like he was supposed to remember her, wasn't he?
He was supposed to remember
He's
her.
like, I'll never forget you. It was like, and because it was like, everybody in the community would make the joke of, don't let go, Jack.
Yeah, but because she was like the other nobodies, the nobodies aren't supposed to exist.
Yeah. And she was made from Sora, Kairi, Roxas, and Naminé.
So she's someone who really isn't supposed to
Like,
exist.
she is on a different level completely because she was an artificial nobody.
So when she disappeared, it was kind of wiped from everyone's memory. It's like, don't forget me. So if she comes back and Roxas doesn't remember her, she can snap like that. But it could also be when she comes back, and even if he does remember her, it'll be like, you didn't try to save me and keep me here.
Yeah.
Regardless, I think she's the Xehanort.
Oh, she's been Norded.
Yeah, 100%.
She's been Norded because, like, if you looked in on the part where Roxas and her were in one of the trailers, you can see that her hair is silver.
Yeah. And then
She's been Norded, like...
And then there's the other thing with Bae being Norded, which I'm not happy about.
Yeah. Well, I could have told... You know what I'm not happy about? Demix is back with the organization, which means he's been Norded. I'm not happy about that, because they never respected Demix's power.
No.
And Demix is probably the second most powerful organization member.
Demix was a joke, but at the same time...
But I never danced like water as much as he did.
Yeah. Like, I think the actual history of Demix's original person is he was just a civilian. Like,
Yeah.
He didn't have anything to do. It was like,
He
we'll
was,
just grab
he
this
was one of
person.
the few people that was just a civilian. Marluxa, it's still speculation, but Marluxa is probably, like, came from another timeline.
Which, yeah, that's another thing.
And then was like, that's a weird one, because his story is so strange, because...
So, what happens in Key, which for those who don't know is the mobile game.
There's 815 missions currently, and if you play the game, if you beat a story mission, it'll take you to the next story mission. But still make sure you hit your multiples of 5 for the free jewels.
Nice. Which I think you can get back to.
Yeah. I'm the highest in our guild right now for quest stuff.
That's fair. But in Key, it's... I don't remember if you said it was said in the game or if it was speculation that
It's speculation, but the character looks uncannily
No,
like...
not just that, but I'm saying that's a separate timeline.
Oh no, that is canonically it is a parallel timeline.
It's a parallel timeline, which means if Marluxia is from that timeline in the current game-wise, then there is time travel, which means
and that's
which
the
would
other
also
thing
go in
is
line with Xehanort.
nobody can place where it's supposed to fit on the timeline.
Yeah.
Because our world already had their Keyblade War, but it doesn't really match how the Keyblade War has been speculated to happen or what was to happen on its way. But it does talk about there being, I remember reading from somebody else, but it talks about it in the game of there being parallel world, basically. They have a parallel timeline theory in the game. So.
Which would kind of make sense with other stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It would make sense with, like, 3D because it's parallel but not at the same time.
It is, because the dream world is parallel.
But that's all essentially just a dream. That is a
Yes.
dream. So that's both real and not real at the same time.
Oh, yeah. Totally is.
Also, those long ornaments from toilets in the front.
Oh, my gosh.
But it would make sense. I don't know. It's weird.
It is. No, it's completely weird.
But
I'm excited for it, though,
Yeah.
nonetheless.
Alright, so of the organization members, most of them were guards or scientists.
Yes.
Ones that were scientists usually.
Or they were at least, because Issa, Lee, Demix is original,
Yeah.
Evan, not Evan,
I was gonna say, no, definitely
Zexian is
Oh, yeah,
original. I
Zexian.
can't remember what his name was. They were all kids
not. Yeah.
at the time. I think we don't know anything about Larxine's original.
No.
We don't know enough about Marluxia's, however you want to say his name. You don't know enough about his background either. And then Roxas is Sora.
Yeah.
And that's the 13. Because everybody before Issa or Sayax, if you don't know Birth by Sleep knowledge, because you've only played 1 and 2, which is there's a lot of the community that have only played 1 and 2, which
is
I
fair.
understand. But Issa is he's number 7? No, number 8. Because I think Axel's number 9.
Axel is number 9.
And Issa was the one right before Axel.
Okay, so he's 8.
And then Demix is 12? No, Demix is 10. Marluxia is 11. Larxine's 12. Yeah. And everybody else before that was either a guard or a scientist in Radiant Garden. The only people that aren't from Radiant Garden are maybe Demix, Marluxia, and Larxine. And then Roxas.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that aren't from Radiant Garden, which was turned into Hollow Bastion by Maleficent.
Yes.
Because all the guards were gone. And Ansem the Wise is an idiot. That line hit me hard too when Xemnas was like, all the kids you've hurt. Like, it showed such a humanity for a man that has no emotions.
Yeah.
He actively does not have a heart, and he's like, no, I'm fighting you because of what you've done to all the kids that you've hurt and everything like that. Like, you're like, that goes so deep because that goes from Issa all the way through the rest of the organization because they were all kids.
Also with that, I forgot, what's the time gap between
Birth
by Sleep and 2?
Birth in 2 is 11 years.
11 years.
Because
Okay.
Birth in 1 is 10 years.
Okay.
Because Sora's, or at least it's about 10 years. Because Sora is 13 at the beginning of 1.
The reason
And he was like 4 or 5, so it might be 8 years.
The reason I ask is because with Issa and Leah all being kids,
Yeah, they were.
that would make sense for their nobodies. But at the same time, what about...
Well, because the events of the Nobody didn't happen until about Kingdom Hearts, about a year or two before Kingdom Hearts 1.
Okay,
So they would have been in their early 20s when they got turned into nobodies.
okay. Well, the other thing goes along with that, of course, Greg looks different from Zigbar.
A little, yes.
Mostly the
He looks
eye
older.
patch, yeah. Zaldin looks different. Rock Dude doesn't look any different. Lexius? Lexius doesn't look any different.
No, he did. Well, he aged really well too.
Yeah.
Zaldin doesn't look that different.
He's not that different.
His hair's a little different. That's it. And he looks a little angrier. But
Vexen is still creepy.
Vexen will always be creepy.
Yeah, because he's...
But then you look at Zexion, and he looks a lot different because he grew up. He was another one that was a child too.
No, he was a scientist.
He was.
Zexion, the book dude.
He was, but he was a kid.
Yeah.
He was like 13. He was Vexen's apprentice.
Yeah.
So he was a kid. He was the same age as Issa and Axel.
And all the scientists did backstab. I'm pretty sure.
No. Zexion didn't.
Zexion didn't, but...
Because he's actually working with Sora and them in KH3.
True.
Because him and Lee, like coming back to help. Because they're like, the stuff that happened should not be going on.
Yeah. Which is one of the true moments you see of him.
Yeah.
Because he's both super shy, and when you get him into a fight, that's when you see, he's very serious at the same time. Which would be an interesting interaction.
Oh yeah. It will be.
I mean, anything that happens in 3 is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Especially story.
Well, and that's the thing I was thinking of. I think we talked about how we're sure that Roxas comes back. Well, just as I'm sure as that, you see Ventus, and I think it might be Roxas. I don't know. You see one of the two of them in the final fight scene.
All right, I have another question. Why the hell are there Unversed? Actually, Unversed I understand is because of Vanitas.
Vanitas, yeah. Because Vanitas. Because he's the darkness. He is pure darkness from a pure heart.
Yes.
Because there's darkness in every heart, but to do what Xehanort wanted, Ventus couldn't achieve it. Yes. So Ventus, his heart was split and was incredibly fragile at the time, which is why he broke at the end of Birth by Sleep. It was incredibly fragile, but it was all pure light. And they needed that in the heart of pure darkness, which was Vanitas. Both of them, so they would clash and make the Keyblade, which they made an incomplete version of the Keyblade, which at that point Aqua fought.
Yes.
And because of what Ventus did, breaking his own heart and sending it basically to get refuge in Sora's, he was broken and thus had he acted as if he didn't have a heart in his body or a soul.
The reason I bring, because there's technically 4 or 5 different mobs. There's Heartless, which will always exist because
Heartless will always exist since their creation by Ansem the Wise.
Also the fact of,
and they also existed, I think, before.
Yeah.
The Keyblade War.
If light exists, there is darkness.
There is darkness, and darkness is the Heartless. Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody's.
They will always exist because there will always be somebody with a strong enough heart.
Yes.
Because basically, if you don't know, nobodies are somebody that they have a strong heart, and when they lost their heart, they turn. If they have a strong enough heart, they turn into both.
Yes.
The nobodies created as a hollow husk of them. It's really weird because if they don't have a strong enough heart, when they get their heart back, the nobody turns back into the person. The Heartless turns back into the person. But if they have a strong enough heart and the Heartless gets defeated, the heart goes to the nobody and turns them back into a regular person, which is weird. It doesn't make sense for KH1 lore. It would make sense if nobody's existed in KH1, but they didn't exist at the time.
They did, which is behind the scenes.
Yeah, they existed.
Yeah.
But what they show is one guy specifically in Traverse Town getting his heart back, the heart was getting his heart back, and he turned back into the dude.
Yeah.
Which is where it gets confusing. If that scene was not in there, then it would work perfectly as everybody turns into a nobody, and their heartless turns into their heart turns into a heartless when it's been removed.
Also, another question I have about
Or
nobody.
consumed by darkness.
I have a question about nobody.
Real quick, we have one more mob to go over, which is just the first. Just saying that they exist.
Dream Eaters. I've seen
And Dream Eaters, that's true.
which means Dream Eaters having to do with the...
Well, we never...
Yes. You
Did we fight Dream Eaters in Dream Drop?
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah. Those are the super colorful ones, which would be Dream Eaters would be what happens after a person either falls to darkness in
Well,
what
they
happens
fall
to their
asleep.
mind. What happens in their mind would be Dream Eaters.
It's not necessarily that they fall to
I wouldn't
darkness,
I wouldn't say to sleep either.
but no. Think about where they're going to get Ventus back from. They're going to get Ventus back from the dream world. Calling it right now. They're going to have to go to the dream world, which is why Riku learned what he did to get his mark of mastery was to awaken Ventus.
But Riku didn't play Birth by Sleep, so he doesn't understand the story.
Exactly. He doesn't understand what Yensid's doing.
That's still the best meme ever. But I have a question about not Unversed, but Nobody's.
Nobody's, yeah.
So, as you said, as person, whatever words.
Yeah, and the stronger the heart, the stronger the personalities.
Yes.
Because Terranort is the only person to have had a conscious Heartless and a conscious Nobody.
Yes.
And that's because of Xehanort's heart and his affiliation with the darkness.
The way the story goes, each person that gets turned into a Nobody becomes a Dusk.
Yes.
But in Cage 2, different organization members have control of different types of Nobodies.
Yes.
Like the gamblers and the dancers.
Well, that's the thing. I think all of them are a type of Dusk.
But,
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think what it came down to is how those came into being was certain organization members taking somebody's Nobody, like turning somebody into a Nobody.
That's what I'm thinking. It's either that or they had just an influence over a certain person. So gamblers would be greed, essentially, if you tied into sins.
Yeah. They had such a high greed. Assassins would be like murderers.
Would be, or dancers would be lust.
Yeah, lust. Well, I guess assassins would have been wrath.
Yeah.
They're wrathful people.
Sorcerers, kind of. I don't know. Envy?
Maybe envy.
But there's more enemies than 7 types.
I don't think there's actually as many.
Dusks, which are
Dusks.
Creepers could be kids.
Creepers.
Technically speaking, creepers could be kids.
Yeah, because those are the small ones that turn into birds.
Yeah, and they can go to the ground and whatnot. Assassin.
Continue onto. I hate it when they do that. Continue onto a road. Why not just say go straight for 37 miles instead of telling me 17 miles, then continue on for another 20?
So Dusks, Creepers,
Dusks, Creepers, Assassins,
Gamblers,
Dancers,
Sorcerers,
Berserkers. Berserkers would probably be Wrath. Assassins might be Pride.
True.
Man, to connect them to the 7 deadly sins, though, I don't know that you can because there's 13 organization members.
Yeah, but
so snipers, which they don't really fit into one.
I'm just thinking because in a couple of the trailers you can see multiple different Nobodies fighting, along with Heartless, along with.
I think it's a mix of people saying. I think it's a mix of needing enemies, just for the game-wise, to have harder enemies to face. As well as certain people saying, oh, well, I've turned this person into a Heartless, I'm taking their Dusk, and it's going to be molded, if you will, by the fact that I took it. And then I will command it.
But at the same time, I like the theory of, in life, this is how this person was. They cared more about this than this.
I like that as well. I would have to sit down and do more research into it. If that makes sense. Like, that's a good theory craft to sit down in front of a computer, look at the wiki of all the different types of Nobodies, and pull up the 7 deadly sins and see what matches.
Yeah.
That's not a theory crafter or something I can answer in a car ride.
Yeah.
It's like the question of why do different characters have different eye colors? Because there's only like 4 eye colors in all of Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, that's another one.
Because there's blue, teal, brown, and gold.
And certain characters have red. Axel.
Axles are blue.
Axels were red in the beginning.
That might have been. I don't remember that.
And then as he progressed, like in the very, very beginning with Roxas,
yeah,
they were red. But as
I'll have to go back and double check because they might have been yellow. It might have just been because when we saw him originally, it was Days, and Days was on DS, so it was very like that might have been a rendering thing, is what I'm saying.
Well, I was thinking it was the beginning of KH2. Like
Getting KH2 is, I believe, teal. Because Roxas had already done what he did to his heart at that point.
maybe.
If they were red at all, it would have been because he's a fire user.
Yeah.
Like that would have been where that came from. But the brown is somebody who has no affiliation to the Keyblade.
Mm-hmm.
Those are just general NPCs. Blue generally means that you're a seer of light. Teal means you walk the line or have been a follower of darkness at one point. And yellow means that you are Norded, or you've turned into a Horcrux for Xehanort.
So,
And then I guess you could say black eyes are people that have fallen to darkness, but usually their whole eye is black.
yeah.
Or it's like yellow, all yellow or something like that. Like
So in that paragraph, that sentence, I move on to another topic, which is that's really kind of interesting me. And to get into that, do we know the time gap between Dream Drop and 3, or what's predicted?
well, we have to look at the time between Dream Drop and Point 2. Which is, I think, it's like 2 or 3 months. Because Sora went off on his own to go train before he could take his Mark of Mastery test.
Yeah.
Again. Because he ran off at the end of Dream Drop when he didn't get his Mark of Mastery. And he wasn't upset. He didn't run off like being upset. He ran off because he's like, I gotta go do better. Which is one thing I love about him. Like, he's such a positive such a positive person.
Which we will see the opposite of that.
Oh, we're gonna see him break. It's gonna suck. Our little baby is gonna break, and then our big guardian boy is not gonna be around to help him, which is gonna suck. Because some people are like, he didn't even cry when Kairi was taken. I was like, no, he didn't cry because he was in shock, and he was already broken down. He didn't know what was gonna happen. He screamed and completely shattered because something happens to Riku. Literally his best friend, the person he has searched for every single game. He has searched for him every single game. Yep. It's gone. Yep. Something's gonna happen. Riku's gonna die or something like that. And that's gonna be the snapping point for him. Because yes, he's in love with Kairi. Yes, I will theory craft to the end of the days that is who he will end up with.
And I don't blame him. Kairi looks really good.
Yes, but there is a point when losing your brother, like literally your brother, like Riku is his family, like his close family. Like he doesn't have a relationship with his parents. He's been off trying to save the world for the past 4 years.
His parents are Charlotte Brown's parents. They're a figurehead. Nothing more. You don't know.
You know nothing else about his life.
Yeah.
Not that he had bad parents. It's just he's not.
They never went into it.
They never went into it with his parents. So that's going to be interesting to see that happen, and to watch that break. I forgot what your original question was.
My original question was asking like the year gap.
Oh, the year gap. I think it's going to honestly be between 2 and 3. I think we're looking at about a year or 2.
Okay, the reason I'm asking is flashback, take it back to the tutorial world.
Yeah.
Hayner, Pence, and Olet.
Yeah. They all look like they're about 2 years older.
Yeah. That's so tutorial world versus Twilight Town. Tutorial world is Roxas. Twilight Town
Was
is
Data
Yeah.
Twilight Town, yeah.
because they have memories in Data World, but in Twilight Town they don't have those memories because they didn't exist. That
Yeah.
wasn't supposed to exist. I remember
Fake
seeing one of the trailers is what's his name? Pence.
Hence the fat one.
Yeah, Pence says because Sora is standing there and they're looking at the computers that are busted in the tube and said, "Let's fix this. Let's see if we can figure stuff out."
Well, and they were broken at the beginning of 2.
Yeah, but it's more of they want to try and get back what Sora found. Because Sora, like you said, Sora still has Roxas. Sora remembers Roxas. I mean, Roxas remembers his timeline where he made friends with him and whatnot.
Yeah.
And from sharing that information, possibly with Hayner, Pence, and Len, Pence could be saying, "Hey, let's fix this. Let's see if we can get back to that data and what we can make out of it."
Very true, very true.
Because one of the snippets from one of the earlier trailers, they're standing around the computer and Pence is trying to get it to work.
Yeah, and that's going to be interesting because I don't know how they're going to pull in melding the data version and the real versions together. That's going to be interesting.
Because what they had before in 2 was it was a teleport essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I don't know how it's gonna work out, but
I'm curious nonetheless.
yeah, because you don't normally see original characters because they don't show up in anything else. They're not referenced in any other Final Fantasies or whatnot. They're original to
Hayner might be a reference.
Hayner is, I believe, but Pence and Olet is not.
Pence and Olet.
They don't
mind me, but they're not a big reference if they are.
If they are, they're the first game they ever show up in is Cage 2.
Yeah.
But they might be a reference to others.
Cypher, I think, is also a reference.
Cypher's from a different Final Fantasy.
Yeah. But his 2 goons are also original characters.
Nope.
I thought they were.
No, they're Final Fantasy.
Oh, they're from the same one he's in, okay.
Yeah. And so, Cypher, as well as, whatever the struggle champ is.
Oh, yeah, Sizer.
They're all from the same game.
Yeah.
But it's rare that you find in a crossover something like this with Disney and Square Enix. It's odd to see original characters wanting to push their boundaries.
Yeah.
That's why I'm really interested in what this is.
Well, and it shows a lot because Nomura said that this was not going to be the only...
This isn't going to be the end of
This isn't the end of KH. This is just the end of Xehanort.
Yeah.
This is the end of the Xehanort saga.
Yeah.
And he didn't even say it was the end of Xehanort. He just said this is the end of the Xehanort saga, which we can imply means it's the end of Xehanort.
You can imply that it's the end of Xehanort, but at the same time, you can imply that this
could also just
form
be
of Xehanort.
Yeah.
Like, you could go into deep freeze, essentially, and then come back maybe 20, 30 years later once everyone's grown up and kind of moved on from this. It's
That
like,
would,
wait.
okay. I'm going to tell you how much of a mistake that would be on his part. If he came back, it was noticeable enough after 30 years, because if the main 3 are alive after 30 years,
Yeah.
they're all going to be hardened Keyblade masters.
But at the same time, with the main evil gone, the main thing that they've been fighting for after all this time is finally gone, and they just have to take care of like the pests here and there. They're not.
Yeah, but Riku's going to go master Luke Skywalker on him. And you're not a Star Wars dude, I know. But
I know, but
for my Star Wars people that saw Episode 7, they know what I'm talking about. Like he's still trained
yeah.
in a way, and he still works. He's so meditated. Like Riku will be forced to reckon with. I think if they do Kingdom Hearts 4, it's gonna be like Boruto.
On No.
in the sense that Sora is still going to be there. He's still going to be a Keyblade master. He's still going to be in shape, like Naruto was, but it's going to be about his and Kairi's kid.
Yeah. Also, at the same time, I doubt it's going to be. I think it's going to be KH3 might be the last number, and the others might just be subtitles.
I'm hoping it's the last number. I like it when companies move away from numbers.
Yeah.
Because then it'll make, and this will probably be one of the last things we talk about, because I think what we're going to do is turn this kind of into like the first podcast.
Oh yeah, we were going to do a game podcast.
We were. And so since we've gone for about an hour already, we'll probably just turn it into a podcast. But to put it like up on Anchor and stuff, it has to be less than an hour and a half. So, which now I got to figure out how I'm going to pull the audio from it. But that being said, I still think it's one of those things where
we're on Google Drive.
You're right.
You'll get to it.
I think it's just one of those things where it will increase the legitimacy of, or the importance of, Birth by Sleep, Days, Coded, Calm, like, because so many people I've heard be like, oh, I played Kingdom Hearts, I'm a huge Kingdom Hearts fan. Oh, which ones have you played? Oh, only 1 and 2. Well, what about the others? Oh, they're just side stories, they don't matter.
But at the same time, I understand people's thinking of that because it's not a numbered.
I do.
That's
but
another reason I don't like the numbered system.
And that's what I'm trying to get at is I hate it because I had that talk with another friend of ours, and they're like, yeah, well, you can just read about the stories like at the beginning of 2 and in the final mix and stuff, it goes over them all. I'm like, but it's not the same. Reading the story, like, I've read Jiminy's journal.
Yeah.
Because I started looking into the character development stuff and whatnot. Reading into Jiminy's journal, in Sora, there are 2 entries, and each one of them has about 2 sentences about who he is as a character. Like 2 to 5 sentences. So you have a total of maybe a paragraph or 2 in an entire game about his character. In a game that has a story that is so fleshed out that if you were to sit down and explain the full thing, explaining it in half an hour still doesn't do it justice. I took 20, 30 minutes to explain Unchained Key and Birth by Sleep. It took 20 to 30 minutes to do. To explain Kingdom Hearts 1 would take me about, to do it in depth would be about 20 minutes.
Yeah. Disney Princess saved them.
Yeah.
Squeenix showed up.
Yeah. And you can do an abridged of it, but like it doesn't do the justice of it. And so to sit there and be like,
at the same time, it doesn't do the justice. Sure, you can read it up, you can find out all this stuff, but you don't get to see the combat. You don't get to see how the bosses feel when you fight them as you fight them in their nobody clone.
Yeah, clones, exactly.
But especially the bosses in KH1. Like, you see the real evilness of all of them. Like Oogie Boogie, Ursula, Jafar. Yeah. You see all of that and how Maleficent taints them
and manipulates them.
Manipulates them into doing what she wants, while all at the same time, Sora is progressing as a character.
Yeah.
You can get that all in text, you can get that all in video.
And that's great in KH1. But then, like, look at Roxas. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, I read up, I know who Roxas is. No. Roxas doesn't even stay on the character list, I don't think, for KH2 in the journal. Like, he might, but even then, if you look in the journal, like, it doesn't tell you about him. You don't get to know who he is, but you play Days, and you have this understanding of him as a character that's so much more.
Yeah.
It's so much more than it was. That's what I appreciated. That's what I think's pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah.
But that's one of the things. That's why I will like getting off of a number system. Like, it's just like how Assassin's Creed, like, 4 was the last one where they were really like, it's Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag.
Yeah.
And then they moved off of that system because they did a transition. But it'll be nice because, like, then they all feel legitimate and they feel like they're all part of the thing. And
they all feel uniform at that point.
Yeah.
Which is a big deal.
It's a big deal for the continuity and the canonic.
You can be like Dragon Quest, or you can be like Final Fantasy, where each game in itself is its own story.
And each number is a different storyline.
But when you have a game that everything goes together with itself, numbers make that a lot harder.
Well, and I mean, it took Halo 5 of them to realize that, too.
Yeah.
But every numbered Halo is Master Chief's story, whereas any not numbered Halo, like ODST, is a side story.
Let's not talk about Metal Gear, because that one's also bad.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it makes sense for how Halo did it.
Yeah.
Because anything that's a number is Master Chief.
Yeah.
Anything that is not a number is not Master Chief. Reach and ODST were not about Master Chief. So I like that in that sense, but it does push that these are side stories, where Birth by Sleep is not a side story. It is the foundation of Kingdom Hearts 1. It is the foundation of the game, of the whole series. It's like Kingdom Hearts Key. That's a movie. Still the foundation of the entire series. I mean, I still want to know how Xehanort got the original Master's Keyblade.
Yeah.
Was he Zuxu? Or Luxu, or whatever his name was?
Was he Zuka?
Was he Zuka?
Oh, no.
Was he, like...
No wonder the hell.
Was he that one that walked away, you know?
Yeah.
So...
Once you start delving more into Key and Unchained Key, that's when everything starts to get really hazy.
Yeah, well, that's because they don't give us the details. Because they're holding off till 3 to do it.
Yeah.
So... Alright, well... I think it was a good part to end. If we do another one of these, because we still have a solid 4 hours of driving, we might.
We also have...
We also have a return trip.
Yeah.
And a trip tomorrow.
Yeah, trip tomorrow we also do.
So...
Depends on how quickly it comes out.
Right. But that all being said, I hope you guys enjoyed it. We're going to turn this into a podcast, and that'll be it. And we'll try to do them regularly. Organic enough where we can have it set up to do weekly and stuff like that. But that all being said, I hope you guys have a great one.
Yeah.
Stay awesome and do great things. And we will see you guys next time. Peace.